granola. I like making my own granola just because I can vary it each time, and it's quite nice to do sort of like seasonal ones. So you know, you can do Christmas ones with kind of cranberries and lots of spices. This time of year I'm going to do cinnamon and pumpkin seeds, a few other bits as well. Also you can sort of control the amount of sugar that goes into it, and also it just reduces the packaging because everything here is in sort of recyclable packaging. So I'm going to, I don't use a specific recipe. I do a sort of bit of a cobbly together one, but it's, obviously you can pick your own. I use, as the fat in mine, I don't tend to use oil. Well, I use coconut oil and butter, and I don't put any extra sugar in, I just use golden syrup. A lot of granola recipes say use honey, but to be honest, if your honey is cheap enough to cook with, it's probably not honey. And I've got a bit of a thing at the moment about honey. I mean, it's one of the most adulterated food products you can get, because it's obviously, you know, they take honey, they put in sugar syrup, and you know, the sort of welfare issues regarding, you know, the honey produced by bees where it's really cheap is just appalling, really. So even though it might say, oh, you know, honey, the recipe I was reading for this, it said, oh, honey is nice and cheap, and you think, oh no, it just breaks my heart. So you know, you shouldn't really be heating honey anyway, because if you're using, or if you've got raw honey, then as soon as you heat it, you're going to get rid of all the benefits anyway. So I would definitely say, you know, use golden syrup or possibly maple syrup if you're feeling flush and you want a nice sort of smoky, mapley taste to it. But to be honest, if you just want sweetness in cooking, I kind of think use golden syrup, because that's, you know, that's what it's there for. So I use basically porridge oats as the main sort of bulk of the flakes, but I am also going to put in some rye flakes, just because rye is a really good anti-inflammatory, and these are you know, they've got quite a sort of crunchy flavour and texture to them, which I think goes nicely with the sort of softness of the porridge oats. I don't really like jumbo oats for some reason, because they're just like quite hard work, but I find a combination of porridge oats and either wheat flakes, barley flakes or rye flakes work really well. I don't really like dried fruit very much, or rather I don't like raisins and sultanas, so I'm going to do a kind of nutty one. So this is this kind of plant-based cellophane, and it's really crunchy, just while the guinea pigs are out grazing, otherwise they'd be going absolutely bananas at the crinkly packaging. The nuts I'm using are from an agroforestry scheme, so basically where they grow trees as well as annual grass crops like wheat and barley and things. So they grow trees as well, and this is a product from them. And agroforestry is kind of really brilliant way of, you know, conserving our soil, and a great way to farm regeneratively. So I try and support these wherever I can. So these are cob nuts from Kent, and these are almonds from, I think, Spain. But I'll put a link down below to Food and Forest, which is where I get these nuts from, because they're really beautiful quality, and I think I've mentioned them before in another vlog. So I'm going to get on and weigh out the ingredients. I melt the fat and the syrup together with a little bit of salt, because sea salt is a really lovely kind of, really brings out the sweetness and the flavour of the granola. So I'm going to melt together the fats and the syrup, and then I will put them all in my KitchenAid to really evenly coat the grains. I need about 500 grams of grains in total. I'm going to put in 200 grams of nuts. If you do use any dried fruit, if you're not a raisin fan, you can use cranberries, cherries, dried apricots are okay, but try and get the soft ones because the sort of regular dried ones can be a bit. So yeah, so I'm going to put almonds and cob nuts in here and pumpkin seeds, but I don't think I have any other dried fruit at the moment, so it's just going to be a nutty one. I'm putting pumpkin seeds in. It is really lovely to use pumpkin seeds and cranberries because you get that beautiful green and red, which is a really nice one to do for Christmas. I'm putting cinnamon and ginger in. Cinnamon sort of for the flavour and the smell, and ginger to give a really lovely sort of warmth to the granola, which is a really tasty addition. Someone's just woken up from her sleep. How are you? No, I know it's food. So cute when he's sleepy. Good boy. Let's say hello. Ned, look at the camera. No, not the food. Typical Labrador. There we go, that's all mixed in. Some people use apple sauce as another sort of binder for the granola. I mean, it really is, you know, it's quite a variable thing to bake, really. And I'm sure, depending on your, you know, what you want regarding the... Oh, hang on, Neddy. Excuse me. Doing very well with the house training, but it does require quite sort of quick reactions. Apologies for that. So, yeah, I'm going to, can't remember what on earth I was saying. I'm going to pop this into, I use a high-sided baking dish, and I put a fairly thick layer because I want it to be sort of in like proper chunks. I don't want it to be too muesli-like. I basically want it to be like a big flapjack. So I'm going to put it in quite a... Shush! Yes. I put it in quite a thick layer, and I'm going to bake it. Again, the baking is very variable depending on what recipe you want to do. But the one I do is a lower temperature for about half an hour. So I put it on 150 degrees C for about half an hour. Some suggest that you should kind of stir it around, but I prefer to do it on a lower temperature and then leave it, because that's when it basically kind of bakes into, like I said, like a big flapjack. I mean, what's not to like about that, frankly? And then you leave it to cool, and then you break it up and you get sort of nice kind of nuggets of granola, which I really like. So I don't press it down at all. I leave it quite sort of fluffy, so it can kind of crisp up and get nice toasted edges, and push it right to the edges of the corners of the pan, because that's the bit that will cook a bit more than the middle. There we are. That got a bit toasted, that corner, but it's actually fine. Sorry, it's my daughter sneezing. It's actually fine because you need some bits which are a bit more toasted. So this is pretty much cool now. So I'm going to get my slice out and just break it up, and then I can put it in the jar. Here's the granola finished. I left it in quite big chunks just because, sorry, the cat's meowing in the background because he's hungry, because it will sort of break down a little bit, so I kind of start with it as bigger chunks. Now, I tend to have my granola with yogurt rather than kind of as a cereal. I have it more as like a dessert or a snack. So it's quite yummy just on its own, to be perfectly honest. So, as I said, don't use honey in the baking of it because it's not terribly good to use honey for that. But by all means, of course, drizzle it on afterwards. If, like me, you keep bees, then having some of your own honey is a delicious way to have your, teaspoonful of health-giving honey each day. Yeah, so it's just not, you shouldn't really heat honey, but it's really lovely on top of granola, as is maple syrup or brown sugar. Obviously this isn't too sweet, and I've kept it's quite nice and crunchy and crispy, and yeah, so I'm really pleased with it. So this will last a week or so. Depends if Rosie finds it, but yeah, it's really delicious. So I do recommend you try your own granola, because it's really easy to make, and it's so much tastier than the shop bought stuff. Down to the farm because I want to collect some autumn leaves. This Acer behind me has just got the most beautiful colour. It's a bit gloomy this evening, and so the colours aren't really showing up, but it's just really beautiful autumn colours. So I'm going to collect some leaves from this one, and it's a kind of wild cherry. Further back up the track there's a crabapple down there as well, but I just want to collect some really beautiful autumn leaves. Here are the leaves that I've collected. Quite a nice different array. I've got some chestnut leaves, sweet chestnut leaves, and sycamore, and quite a few of the acers, and a lime, all sorts, a couple of birch as well. So I will take these back to the house. All right, Scruff? Good lad. When you collect leaves, obviously when you bring them in, after kind of a day or so, they go kind of crispy and crunchy, and they're not unattractive, but it's quite difficult to kind of do anything with them. So I was looking up a way of how to preserve them, and I found on the good old internet a way using glycerin. Spit it out. Glycerin here, which you can find in the baking section of the supermarket, because you use it in sort of icing and things like that. And basically what you're going to do is submerge the fallen leaves, which I collected last night, into a solution of glycerin. So it's 1 part glycerin to 2 parts water, and you soak the leaves, submerge them in that, soak them for 2 to 4 days, so more than 2, not more than 4. And apparently what happens is some of the glycerin, which I can't remember the chemical formula for glycerin, but some of the glycerin replaces some of the sugars in the leaves, and it sort of so they retain their kind of suppleness and some of the colour. So these are the leaves I collected a few days ago, and as you can see they're brittle and sort of gone quite dull. And these are the ones I soaked in glycerin a few days ago, and as you can see they're still pliable, and the colour has dulled a little bit, but they're still, you know, perfectly nice to look at, and they've got a bit of a shine on them as well, which I think is really attractive. So I thought I would show you, I mean it's not rocket science, so I'm just going to sort of show you exactly what to do. So these are the leaves I collected last night, and here is my glycerin, and I don't have a small enough like container. Sausage, what are you doing? Get out of the larder. Sausage, out. Sorry. So, and I've just got a small baking tray here, and then a slightly smaller one which will sit into it, because you need to submerge the leaves, like I said. So I find the easiest way is I'll just refill this twice, and then I will get my ratio correct. Now I'll mix it round a bit, because the glycerin is slightly sort of gloopy and syrupy. And then it's just a question of putting your leaves in. So I'm going to do a selection. It seems to work better with the ones that aren't too sort of dry and crispy and crunchy anyway. So I picked up that one, but that's a bit brittle already. But the ones which are sort of just have gone brown, or ones like that. But it's really, I think they're really beautiful. And you know, they last kind of, you know, a couple of years like this. So, but it's certainly, if you're wanting to use them for journaling or you know, any sort of craft projects, they'll certainly be good for that. Now with the last lot I didn't worry about placing, you know, sort of having them in more than a layer, because I think as long as there's the glycerin solution between them, you know, they'll be fine. So there we've got my leaves, and I'm just going to sort of press them down to make sure they're all coated in the solution, and then I'm just going to sit the baking tray on top. I might make up another tray, as in another pot, so that I've got a little bit more liquid, just so they submerge a bit more effectively. But basically that's the principle, and then you weigh them down with another baking tray on top and just give it a press so that they're all nicely covered in the liquid. And then it's just a question of leaving them. I just left them in my spare room, and went to check on them after a couple of days, and as I said, they come out quite nice, and yeah, I think the colour's pretty good on that, isn't it? It's, oh, sorry, I've broken that one. I mean, it's not quite as, I guess this would be an equivalent. It's not quite as shiny, but you know, it's good enough, and they're, you know, it's beautiful colours. So maybe if you're wanting to have some leaves for a craft project, give that a go. I've mentioned before in vlogs about how much I enjoy lettering. I do lettering for my egg boxes, and I've started doing a little bit of journaling, and what I wanted to do was make a sort of staycation journal, basically, because things have been different this year. I probably would have been away a few times, quite interested in pursuing non-flight travel. And we're fortunate here having the Eurostar, which I've travelled on a number of times and I really enjoy it. I love a train journey. And, had COVID not happened, there would have been we would have definitely tried to get to Paris, and I did have a bit of an idea of getting down to Madrid or possibly Barcelona. And go back to Amsterdam and that kind of thing. So I've really enjoyed being at home. I'm continuing to enjoy being at home, and it's been really lovely to properly really get to know my sort of area. And I don't miss kind of travel. I kind of enjoy it, but I'm not terribly good at it. But I do, it's lovely to have the idea of being able to go away. So I thought, well, a lot of the fun of going away is planning. And as I said, with a few of the trips I already had planned or penciled in, I bought some travel guides and that kind of thing, and spent quite a lot of time sorting out where I might like to go or visit when we were there. So I thought, well, why not just put that together in a little journal, just as a way of sort of, I don't know, assuaging some of those feelings of wanting to travel, but just not really. I know theoretically it is possible to travel to places, but the idea of it's just all too difficult. So I'm not wanting to travel at the moment, but it's nice to maybe just think about it a bit. So I've got this journal, which is an old notebook, which I started during lockdown, actually, just as a sort of bit of a way of entertaining myself. And what I've done, you might be able to see, so it's an old moleskin soft cover plain notebook. And if you've got, I'm a terrible one for buying a new notebook and not having finished the old one, but quite a good way of reusing them is to go through, and if you cut out some of the pages and then stick in kind of basically new paper, so you can see here, I've cut out the page from the book and I've stuck in some new paper just with craft tape. And the thing is, because if you just stick in new paper, obviously it gets a bit fat, and you can see I've done the same here. And it just means, I mean, these are old prints that I did that didn't go very well, so I'm just using up old paper, scrap paper, and sticking them in. And if you cut out the pages, you can, I've got old bits of watercolour paper, I've got some old sort of books, as I said, quite a few of my dad prints. And then you can obviously reuse an old book, even if you've used some of the pages but not all of them. So this is my Staycation Journal that I started. I'll show you a picture because I've got a print on the other side, it's a bit distracting. But it's also just an excuse to sort of practice some lettering. And it's a way of just being kind of creative but not having to come up with everything yourself, because you've got quite a lot of prompts because you're doing it about a specific subject. And sometimes when I'm feeling a bit brain dead, which I am at the moment just because of the puppy, it's nice to do something which is kind of creative but doesn't take too much creative energy, because there's stuff around you that you can kind of pull from, and you're doing stuff, but it's the kind of creating that you're doing, rather than having to conjure up a whole load of new ideas yourself. Now, I haven't got a tremendous amount of journaling sort of stuff. I know there's absolutely masses you can get online, and some of the journaling that's done is just absolutely exquisite. But as I said, I don't have much. I've got some stamps, which are really lovely wooden stamps with an ink pad. I've got a butterflies one there and a birds and nests one here. I've got a few rolls of washi tape, which are rather dull colours actually. I bought them in the sale because I'm cheap. Then I've got a few sort of little stamps, as in actual stamps, postage stamps. And so I've got a few bits, but I'm also a bit sort of loath to kind of go out and buy a load of journaling things. So something else you can do, which is what I'm going to do here, because I'm going to do a page about Paris, because that was sort of the one I'd sort of researched most, because that was the one we were most likely to be going to next. And I've got this. I'm not a great one for sort of rough guides or eyewitness guides, or the kind of typical tourist guides to cities. I'm a bit snobbish like that. So but the monocle travel guides are brilliant, and I also like the wallpaper ones. And so I've got this one for Paris and this one, and I've read this one so many times actually. It's quite well thumbed. So it's quite fun to just kind of look through different travel books and highlight where you might like to go. And what you can do then is, especially if you enjoy lettering, if there's a particular shop you want to visit, or a building or somewhere, you can look up the font and then copy the lettering from the place itself or from the brand, which is quite a fun thing to do. Something else you can do is to screenshot either the logo or something from the place you want to visit, and then you can obviously cut that out and stick it in. Now, two places I really wanted to go to in Paris was, I'm not going to start trying to pronounce things, because I think my son's girlfriend, who is French, may well be watching this, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to pronounce anything. But I've got this beautiful soap which I got for Christmas last year, which came from Fortnum's, but it's a lovely Parisian perfume house. And so I've got the address here, so that's somewhere that I really wanted to visit. And another place I wanted to go to is Diptyque, which is another perfume house, but they do the most amazing candles. This is my favourite one. It's basically berries, baies, and I just love the smell. And again, they have a store in Paris. And so what I've done is I've been onto both these websites and just screenshot a couple of the kind of more illustrative parts of their website, and I've just printed them out or pasted them onto just a blank document and then printed them out. So I'm going to cut these out and stick them in. I've already gone on with my stamps and just done a few little butterflies. I don't know why I thought butterflies meant Paris, but it's what I wanted to do. So I've got a few little stamps in here already, and I've got my trusty pens. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of mooch about and have a little look through the guidebooks and cut out the bits from the websites and just stick them in. But it's quite a fun thing to do. Just put on a podcast or a film or something, and you can just kind of pot around. Because as I said, it doesn't take too much creative thought. It's more a question of just kind of gathering things and cutting and sticking, which for some reason is something people of all ages seem to really enjoy. So that's what I'm going to do.